네, 오늘 밤 CPI 발표를 앞두고 레리 서머스 교수님의 인터뷰를 소개하려고 합니다. 이분이 워낙 그 워딩도 세고 이렇게 얘기하셔가지고 참 보면서 참 뜨끔뜨끔 했는데요. 먼저 영상을 한번 보시죠.
We had a lot of economic news this week. We had jobs numbers and we had Fed results, of course. Let's start with the jobs numbers because they came in, I think, at least relatively strong. How did you interpret them?
I saw it the same way. Look, the population only grows by about 50,000 adults a month. So anytime you have 250,000 jobs, you're growing at a rate that you're not going to be ultimately able to sustain. It shows that still the economy is looking quite strong, no recession soon. You saw wages tick up. So the good news is economy looking robust. The bad news is not much evidence of inflation restraint yet in train.
Of course, when Jay Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, spoke earlier on Wednesday, he didn't know what those jobs numbers were being, I don't believe. At the same time, what he said anticipated just what you just said is that inflation continues, they're going to have to keep hiking. I assume you thought what they did made sense.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of bouncing around immediately after the statement, but after Chairman Powell's press conference, I thought the necessary and right signal has been sent that the Fed is determined to stay the course with respect to inflation, that a sensible judgment of where the terminal rate, how high Fed funds will ultimately have to go, has gone up given the strong inflation numbers, the strong employment numbers that we've seen, and that the Fed is determined. So I thought those were very much the right kind of signals for the Fed to send, and I think it's appropriate.
와, 이게 말씀하시는 것이 시원시원하긴 한데 인플레이션이 사탄 걸렸다는 등 아직 금리를 인상한 것에 효과가 없다는 등 이런 얘기를 하는 것이 굉장히 인상적이었습니다. 그런데 저는 또 이 보면은 최근에 제가 소개해드린 것 중에서 R 더블스타라고 해가지고 월스트리트를 위한 금리는 따로 있으니 금리가 너무 높다 지금 이런 얘기를 소개해드린 적이 있잖아요. 그것과 비슷한 이야기로 최근에는 샌프란시스코 연은에서는 이제 금리 좀 그만 올리자. 우리가 프록시 펀드 레이트라는 걸 계산해 봤는데 지금 실제 금리를 올린 것보다도 훨씬 더 지금 금리를 많이 올린 셈이니까 이 정도 했으면 됐다. 이제 물가 안정될 거니까 금리 그만 올리자. 이런 이야기들도 나오고 있는 상황이거든요. 이분들에게 서머스는 무슨 얘기를 할까요?
I think we are starting to get some little suggestion in the data. We don't know yet, and we always have to remember about lags, that the effect of interest rates on slowing the economy might in toto be somewhat less than many people supposed. And if that's right, I think it's going to be pressure for interest rates to be pushed up further in order to get done the necessary inflation restriction. So I'm moving upwards my view on the possibilities for the terminal rate. It's not what I would expect, but it would not surprise me if the terminal rate reached 6 or more. And I think the Fed has to be noticing that there's been started to be some upwards moves in inflation expectations, albeit from low levels. And that's got to be a source of concern for them as well.
진짜 워딩이 세죠? 자, 그리고 또 이제 앵커가 물가에 관련돼서 이런 질문을 하죠. 지금 공급망 이슈는 지금 해결된 것 같습니다. 과거에 이제 문제가 됐던 걸 다 해결돼서 공급 측 인플레이션은 오케이, 다 끝난 거 아닌가요? 그런데 이제 그러면 물가는 안정되는 거 아닌가요? 라는 전망들도 있는데 어떻게 생각하시냐는 그런 질문을 하거든요. 서머스 교수님의 얘기를 들어보시죠.
Larry, we're also beginning to get some suggestions, including even by some economists like Mark Zandi, that in fact the real cause of the inflation is more a matter of supply rather than demand. And because of that, it's not going to be really effective to just try to curtail demand through increased rates. And therefore, by beginning of next year, maybe they should start cutting back. What do you make of that suggestion?
I have to respectfully say that I can't really see a lot of logic in the views that Zandy and those like him are expressing. Look, the basic fact is that the way you tell a supply shock from a demand shock, both of them raise prices, but when there's a supply shock, quantity falls. When there's a demand shock, output is strong, and output has been very strong. Employment has been very strong. The people who talk about supply shocks, it's really just the last readout of Team Transitory. First, it was a story about COVID ending quickly. Then it was a story about COVID ending slowly. It keeps bouncing around what the story is. We've still got high core inflation, and gasoline prices were mostly down for a period of more than 3 months. So I don't hear the story. Very simple ways of looking at the data. Look at what's happening to nominal GDP, total dollar volume of GDP. If that's going up rapidly, that tells you that demand is going up strongly.
마지막으로 이제 부채 한도에 대한 이야기인데요. 미국의 부채 한도와 관련된 이야기는 참 할 말이 많습니다. 부채 한도는 계속해서 해마다 도달하면 올리는 거라서 그냥 뭐 올릴 걸 어차피 올릴 거 한도를 왜 정하나 이런 생각이 들 정도예요. 그리고 지금 현재 미국의 부채는 무려 30조 달러가 넘어선 상황이니까 1995년에 5조 달러였다는 걸 감안하면은 무려 6배나 높은 상황인 거죠. 부채 한도 문제도 중간 선거 이후로 또 문제가 된다라고 할 수 있는데 서머스 교수님이 이에 대한 이야기를 했습니다.
Larry, another issue that it's rearing its head, you've seen this issue before, and that's the debt ceiling up in Congress, because we're going to be pushing up against it sometime in the new year, maybe not even too far to the new year. We're now seeing some talk on Capitol Hill that perhaps, particularly Republicans, if they come into power, will actually hold that hostage to get some other changes they want, particularly in things like entitlements. What's your experience with the debt ceiling? What should we be doing?
There are a lot of bad ideas in American politics, but I think it's close to the worst idea in American politics that we should hold hostage the creditworthiness of the country, threatening to default for the first time in 250 years. And the ransom that people want is taking Social Security benefits away from retirees, not a single one of whom gets more than $40,000 from Social Security. It is almost impossible to see a worse idea, either in terms of the hostage taking or the desired ransom. The right thing to do is for us to raise that debt ceiling for a long time so it won't be a political football. And I hope that as many responsible Americans as possible can say, look, yes, I am for entitlement reform. I am for looking at the long-run deficit picture, but hostage-taking to cut Social Security is wrong. And I hope some of the business leaders who watch this show, whose PACs are giving money to support the people who are advocating that, will convey that as responsible financial leaders, they know that their companies and all our fellow citizens have a stake in the United States not playing games of chicken with our country's creditworthiness.
글쎄요, 오늘 밤에 CPI가 어떻게 나올지는 모르겠지만 일단은 공급 측과 관련된 문제들 그리고 제조업과 관련된 문제는 완화될 것 같아요. 그런데 서비스업과 관련된 인플레이션이 좀 찐득찐득한데 이것이 얼마나 낮아지는지를 확인하는 것이 중요한 포인트가 되지 않을까 싶습니다. 오늘 밤 너무 중요한 이벤트인데 다들 성공 투자하시길 바라면서 저는 여기서 인사드리도록 하겠습니다. 지금까지 이효석 아카데미였습니다. 감사합니다.